Well, thank you very much and for the wonderful chairs, and we look forward to having a great 30-minute conversation here where we will talk through all the details of mobile return on investment in strategic ways. Is that the way we talk about it, Ben? Absolutely. Okay, so let's start. This is a great panel. I couldn't do justice to introducing each one of them. It is rare to get a panel like this together. These gentlemen have seen and executed so many digital campaigns, and I can't think of a better group of people to talk about KPIs and return on investment and where we're going in the future. So, Greg, why don't you start it off, introduce yourself, and we'll go now.
Well, I'm going to repeat what I said before. This is, this looks like an episode of the middle-aged Jewish bachelors up here. Yeah, a lot of us are really
partially
feeling
bald
our age.
edition.
Hi, my name's Gregg Colvin. I see some familiar faces. I am the COO of Universal McCann North America, and happy to be here. My experience probably a little bit different from most of the other people's here, in that I worked at Fox and News Corp for many years, more on the business side. So I really come at things from a digital perspective and a business perspective, more so than even a media and marketing perspective, despite the role that I have now and I've been in for the last couple of years. But I'm happy to be here and happy to get an argumentative discussion going.
I'm not looking forward to that at all.
Yeah.
No, not at all. So good morning. My name is Brian Leder. I'm the senior partner over at Group M. So I oversee digital in North America for both Maxus as well as what we're dubbing Team Nestle right now. A little secret, the agency will start with an M. We're working through a name, but for right now, that's what we've got. Very similar experience. I spent most of my first part of my career actually on the publisher side as well. Spent 6 years at Yahoo over in Sunnyvale, working a number of businesses. So interesting, kind of seeing both sides of the table, what's going on now that I'm at the agency side. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Ben Winkler. I'm the Chief Digital Officer at OMD. Don't ask me what it stands for. I'm not really sure. And so they cut me off. There we are. I told my counterpart at PhD that I was going to be on a panel for mobile ROI. He said, "Oh, that should be short." So we'll see if we can fill up for 30 minutes.
And I am Adam Broitman. I feel like I'm the only person who's not a chief on this panel, so I feel a little bit apologetic that if you're underwhelmed with my performance, I will certainly make it up later. I'm the VP of Global Digital Marketing at MasterCard, and I work on all things digital, mobile, social, all things. So, and I have some of my team here today. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks. We got a very varied background and different points of views, and hopefully we'll have a good heated conversation.
I hope so.
Fantastic. So let's just
three agencies here.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We fill up the stage with a lot more. So let's start off with something pretty easy. There's so many stats about the growth of mobile. I think we all pretty much in this room agree that mobile is now the first screen. I don't know anyone in Adweek that would say anything different at all. It's a little joke. It's maybe not the first screen. But clearly consumer trends are rapidly moving towards mobile. And that leads a lot of excitement for brands, a lot of excitement for agencies, and also a lot of opportunities to do things great. So I'd love to just kind of kick it off with what are you most excited about mobile today before we jump into the ROI topic?
You want me to start? I'm excited about mobile as a platform because it's been 5 years of me reading the Mary Meeker report and things like that and saying this is the year of mobile. I think we're finally, I got one laugh there. I think we're finally moving towards that. What's really exciting is that sort of the real-time connectivity of it and the ability to market to our consumers in a one-to-one fashion. The one thing that's always bothered me about traditional marketing has been you start with a broad message and you go to a broad swath of consumers. And I really like the idea that we can replace, and I'm making this up on the fly, so if I say something stupid, cut me off. But I really like the idea that we can replace the GRP with a person and things like frequency with moments when we can actually be contextually relevant. So I'm less excited today about the technology as I am about the fact that we've level set at a time where we can actually do some of these things that are more progressive and use the medium in a way that's significantly more in line with what the promise of mobile is: contextually relevant, today, immediate. And that's kind of a broad answer, but that's really what excites me about mobile today.
Yeah. I was, just to add on to that, we're finally getting to a point where mobile phones are providing value to the consumers. It's less of a toy, it's less of a device that you may or may not have a feature phone or a smartphone, but there's utility there that, as a marketer and as a brand, now I've got something I actually do something with. And we've gotten, from an advertising standpoint, I think we're getting close. I think it's still a huge challenge, but creatively just engaging consumers with marketing messages that I think really can kind of move folks, to the shelf. And it's all the clients that we're seeing from a Group M perspective. We're really start to see some of that momentum of this is a device that's actually starting to really influence purchase behavior and direction. So it's great.
I wish I could say I was excited about something in mobile, but I'm actually dismayed. I'm filled with dread right now because all I read about with mobile is cookies and tracking and ad serving. And it brings you back to those nightmare days when digital, online first came out 10, 15 years ago. And here's this amazing new medium and young people and exciting people using it for new, exciting ways. And all we can think about is how are we going to serve ads to these people? And it doomed online advertising, in my opinion. We're still talking about, that's why we're buying billions of banner impressions. There's nothing magic about mobile that will make your banner work better. Yet that's what we're trying to do, is make mobile another platform to run banners and then track and then put cookies on it and find out what their cross-platform exposure is. I find that incredibly disappointing, and I'm hoping that conferences like this will raise us out of that and start talking about ideas again and human beings and behaviors, not non-identifiable cookie data.
So let me take that and ask you the question. So it sounds to me like the thing you're most excited about is ideas and human behavior and creativity. You've had to have seen some sort of examples of that in mobile today.
There's fantastic examples of that, and anyone who's gone to the Cannes Lion page and taken a look at the amazing things that are happening not in the US should be pretty impressed by it. But they really nailed it in Finland and Korea, one of them at least. Yeah, certainly I'm excited about that. I just think that internationally it's fantastic. But here, with that emphasis on, and here we're talking about ROI right now, and I think we can do that in a way that still emphasizes ideas and insights, but as long as we're talking about cookies, we're not talking about real performance.
So the problem with being on the end of the panel is you lose your chance to then be provocative and say things that go against what the question was. So thanks for that. I was going to tell you that I'm not excited about anything in mobile today, but yesterday I got really excited because on my mobile phone, there's this really cool app called Hinge, and I went on a date, and that was really exciting. That being said, I would like to just for a moment take the opportunity to say that if I hear the word mobile first one more time today, I will be hanging from the rafters.
There goes question number 2.
Yeah, I just think it's such a backwards way to look at things, and there's something really interesting about this industry, and I've been in it for quite a while. I was going to say since I had hair, but that's not actually true. I've been in it for a while, and we tend to move to the very ends of the spectrum. So we're at mobile first, and I think it's about ideas first, right? It's not about mobile first. What does that really look like when we're talking about mobile first? So we start everything small and then we expand it to really big. And it also begs the question, what is mobile, right? Anything that's not nailed down to the ground, right? So I actually designed for my Palm Pilot first. I think that's probably the best strategy. No, I'm just kidding. But in terms of what I'm really excited about is the maturation of this industry to the point where these conversations, once again, talk about the ecosystem and talk about the ability to use the entire ecosystem with nothing first except for ideas and creativity.
That was very provocative for being the person at the end of the panel.
You know, I had to step it up a little bit.
Okay, so now we have a bunch of folks up here on this panel that are maybe not directly responsible, but very influential in how advertising dollars get spent and how brands like Nestle and others reach their consumers. So I've spoken with more than one CMO who has said to me some version of this statement. I know my consumers are all over their mobile phones. In fact, I know that's usually where they hear from me first, whether it's email or whatever it might be. 2, I know I need to advertise on mobile because that's where my consumers are and that's where my current and future generations of customers will be. Prove to me it works. So under this entire landscape of we're not excited about mobile because it's gone to cookie and digitalized or whatever it might be, what are you guys seeing being done around the areas of KPIs or ideas to help brands embrace the inevitable of having to advertise in mobile?
I mean, I can jump in, and I mean, it'd be great if we just get a discussion going. First of all, I totally agree with a lot of what you're saying. Where I would disagree, sorry, on the mobile first is a shorthand, right? It's just a definitional term. I don't mind it.
Why say it then?
Well, because you don't want to say contextually relevant, immediate, we're replacing GRPs with people. I mean, what it implies is a one-to-one immediate connection, and it's a philosophical shift. So I like saying it because I like people moving from the traditional side of the house and thinking about things in a television mindset. To me, by saying it, it's just a shorthand movement towards really one-to-one communications, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think you're probably giving too many people like too much credit. I think that you know, you actually do see people then shifting dollars to a mobile bucket for the sake of being in a mobile bucket.
Fair enough. I'm talking to everybody who's not obtuse and a critical thinker. How's that?
Okay. Everyone else is free to go.
All right. So everybody in this room.
That's room B, I think, is that group.
All right. So let me, I think what you were asking about was strategic and creative things that we've seen in mobile, and we're talking about ROI. And I think, I was thinking about this as I was walking over here from the hotel, and there's probably a couple rules of thumb that, I don't want to sound like Tony Robbins, but but I will for a second. But I think they're important, and they give me some use cases which I think are relevant. The first one is when we're talking about mobile, I think you need to know your strengths and know your weaknesses. That's my psychobabble for the day. But I think knowing your weaknesses, for instance, is we know that mobile has capabilities that it can do, and we know the things that it can't do. And we know as marketers, we're capable of doing certain things, and we're not capable of doing others. So one of the use cases that came to mind was immediate conversion, right? We talk about mobile as a utility, and I believe in mobile as a pragmatic utility more than a demographic tool or a branding tool. And so when you think about that, we as marketers at agencies and media people are not, we're not technologists and we're not engineers. So we need to know that about ourselves and work with best-in-class partners. For a movie campaign a year ago that we ran for Sony, for instance, what we decided to do was use the power of what we had, which is dollars and ideas. Actually, ideas first, then dollars. But and what we did essentially is for the movie Moneyball was take a process that was basically an 8-step process on mobile, from searching for a film to converting. And what we said was, how do we make that process more seamless? Because we know the abandonment rate is so high. So ultimately what we did was we said, all right, Google, you get in a room with Fandango and you guys figure it out because we're not engineers. And that's knowing our weaknesses. And what we did was we turned an 8-step process into a 3-step process, and we saw, here's your ROI, 125% increase in sales. I mean, that's a really easy thing where we can get an idea of how we solve for something and then get the engineers and the technologists in the room to make it happen. I have a number of other examples, but I don't want to hog the microphone because I'm known to do that. But I think if we really concentrate on turning immediate conversions for the products that are relevant, for certain CPG products in store, certainly for everything he's doing, I'm sorry, for everything Adam's doing, I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on the type of products you're moving, but there's an incredible amount of things that we can do where to immediately convert a customer who's expressed an interest in our products.
Yeah, that sounds pretty rich from a CMO who spends 50% of his budget in TV, 30% in print, and then mobile comes along, people spend just over 2 hours a day with it, and he goes, yeah, prove to me that it works before I put a buck into that. Really? Okay, have fun with that 6 months longer in your CMO job. ROI is
Proven in TV too, right?
Exactly. ROI, conceptually, it's the same in mobile as it is anywhere else. I mean, if you see media and advertising as an investment rather than an expense, then of course you get back your business results. And so conceptually it works. But executionally, it's completely different for mobile than it is for other media. I think that really falls into 3 categories. The first one is behavior, human behaviors. And I talked about that briefly before, right? What is the behavior that we're trying to change or engender? And often these behaviors didn't exist 18 months ago, right? A couple years ago, no one was dropping pins. Right now, we're dropping pins all over the place. Please pick up your pins on the way out. The second piece is the tools. Suddenly we have GPS, gyroscopes, SMS, 2D barcodes that close that gap between a prospect and a customer, right? And the last piece, and this goes back to my mobile first friend here, is timing, right? If you're not thinking about this stuff, basically, let me put it this way. If you already have your campaign baked, and then you say, okay, guys, time to roll out the mobile, okay, it doesn't matter what your KPIs are, it doesn't matter what your cookies are, that campaign will fail. And you can do a whole bunch of work to determine exactly how badly it fails, but that doesn't seem like great use of your time. You got to think early on, bring in those creative agencies so you know what the messaging and your assets are going to be. Bring in the tech guys so that you can fulfill on the promise that you're trying to deliver. And of course, bring in your mobile experts, and hopefully the person who runs the account is also something of a mobile expert. And then suddenly you're changing behaviors. We're delivering on performance. And if you look back on it, you'll go, oh, and I guess my KPIs work too. But KPIs come afterward.
Yeah, I think the reason that this conversation actually is interesting and more interesting than even I thought it would be is the mobile device is it's very unique from a media perspective because we're up here talking about the media of it, but think of another medium, like think about television. Television, there was no embedded utility that you had on you every day, right? So where does the mobile device fit on the spectrum? The mobile device can be many different things at many different times, right? So you could have 3 different panels about the ROI of mobile, one being media, which is what we're talking about. But as media and marketing practitioners, our ability to move closer to the product end is more powerful than ever before because the barriers to entry to actually create products have been lowered due to the ability of creation of software at much less expensive than if you were to build a product that were a hardware device. So it becomes a very interesting conversation that we're having. And where I think the real ROI is in all this is, you've heard people say the mobile device as, the remote control for our entire lives, and cliche, right, for this industry. But it really is that. It's the glue that can tie all other media together. So I think there needs to be a metric somehow in all of this that speaks to how well did the mobile marketing do in terms of tying together everything else that we're doing, right? You can call that cross-channel attribution, of course, but I think that it's not an easy to answer question because of the nature of we have the tricorder for the Star Trek fans in our hands. We have the most powerful computing device in history sitting in our pocket, which is actually pretty amazing when you stop and think about it. So to think about ROI in one level of serving advertising, while that's what we do, I think that we now have the opportunity to go beyond that. And, I'm not being negative here with that. I'm actually very excited about the opportunity we have to evolve what we do for a living.
Yeah, and I don't want to be idealistic by any means. And I agree with your point earlier that, it seems like history is repeating itself, right? We're in the exact same position with mobile as we were 6, 7, 8 years ago. And it's just amazing. We're just thinking about it the same way. And I'm like, did we not learn anything from, the same approach that we had? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So But
You really think that?
I do. I think in a lot of respects it's
How? Because
how
I
do we
feel like we're so much more advanced with mobile.
Well,
Like,
and I think Adam said mobile is the glue that can help us pull it all together. Didn't we say that exact thing about digital before it has evolved to where it is today?
Yeah, we had the same
That's
on
right.
this probably on the stage too. But and I'm feeling
I
very
said that.
self-conscious, by the way, about the fact that I'm in the lowest chair.
at least you're next to the shortest guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm glad we sat next to each other because I'm almost, So, but yeah, in a lot of respects, it's only been in the last, I'd say, 12 months, maybe 18, and that's stretching it, that, we've gotten away from, all right, how do we slap these tiny little banners on the bottom of the screen? And, it is about cookie technology and how do we engage. And I think there's some very sophisticated approaches that I think are much, much further ahead than we were 5-6 years ago. But in the same respects, we really have not significantly moved the needle forward in how do we demonstrate ROI. And I think that we are starting to get there. And there's some applications, not necessarily at scale, that are testing different ways of, all right, how do I engage the consumer at the store shelf? And whether you believe it or not, whether 1 in 3 shoppers are bringing their mobile phone into a store and whether they're actually doing something with it while they're in store, to some extent, I question that a little bit. I mean, if you've got a mother or a family who's got several screaming kids that are sitting, in the shopping cart, and then you got your mobile phone too, and you're scanning products, I somewhat question that. But I think there is some application to be able to figure out, can we start to create some kind of experience with the consumer to influence that purchase behavior? Seeing that a little bit.
That showroom thing is fascinating, and maybe the screaming kids probably have their own phones and they're doing the scanning. But one of our clients is Toys R Us, and showrooming has become something of a threat, right? This is a threat that they never saw coming. And you guys know the phenomenon. You go into the store, and people are scanning the toy and then buying it online for a couple bucks less, right? And at first, it's like, well, so how do we keep these apps out of the stores, right? Okay, maybe that's not the approach. So instead, it's, well, what if we work with these apps? We reach out, use GPS to know if someone is scanning a product that Toys R Us stocks, and they're in a Toys R Us. And as they scan it, a little notice pops up and says, hey, if you buy this product right now with this code in the store, you get 10% off. Yeah, that's it. We've just slightly adjusted a behavior, made it easier. Now, we didn't go in there saying, what are our KPIs? We came in there saying, what behavior are we trying to change for the better? And everybody wins.
Yeah, there's a couple different ways to do it. So in retail, not necessarily Toys R Us example, but we did for Panera. And we're continuing to evolve how we're approaching this. But we know that, consumers get hungry. And around lunchtime, they're probably looking for something to eat.
You guys writing this stuff down? This is gold.
This is going to change your life. So we know that we can influence consumers. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be overly complex. I mean, I think we have to go to the idea and the basic premise of what drives the consumer. And if we could start pinging them messages and reward them for going to an in-store experience where they may, by the way, already have a loyal relationship, and kind of give them that extra nudge to say, you know what, here's a couple items that you want to try. We recognize that it's hot out, so get a couple bucks off a smoothie. Or there's a new salad that we're trying, so we'll try to incent you to make an extra couple purchases.
Right.
So,
Sorry to interrupt. I mean, all we're really saying, and this redounds down, and this is why I'm probably more bullish and optimistic than anybody here, which is a first, if anyone knows me, because I'm the resident cynic, but it's about being smarter as marketers and planners, right? We finally have a tool that can allow us to market one-to-one. So you're right. For Johnson & Johnson, if the pollen count's high and we have Zyrtec, we want that message out there to our consumers right away because we know that that's something that they can engage upon. If it's cold and they need a drink, whatever it is. That's something that we don't have the ability to do right now in television, no matter what anyone says. It's not as addressable and immediate as we'd like it to be. So the real question is not do we have the right KPI and not do we have the right tools and technology, but do we have the right ideas? Are we thinking about this smart? Are we scenario planning in a way that is meaningful to the products that we're trying to move? And that's all we're saying. And I think we actually have a tool. I mean, I read a stat, and looking around the room, it's actually true that 51% of you guys have checked your mobile phone within the last 5 minutes. That's amazing, and that's a staggering idea when you think about that as a marketing vehicle. If we can be smart about how we plan for that, and how we utilize that platform, then I think we've moved the marketing and media business light years ahead from where it was even 2-3 years ago.
Yeah. See, now I think we've gone from I'm not excited about anything in mobile. This is the worst thing ever. To
That's a pretty good
wow.
Ben Winkler
Oh my
impression.
goodness. There's
Well, I
some
mean,
really
this is
good,
what we do for a living, so we kind of, you know.
I mean, there is some really good things happening out there, and it sounds like we're centering on this idea that, gosh, if you just deliver customers to your clients and think about how to make their day better or more bright or whatever it might be, they're going to go in and buy a Nestle's chocolate bar, whether it is the phone that they're holding that tells them to do that or the billboard across the street. So that's really where mobile is. So, Adam, let me ask you, you're the resident direct advertiser on this panel, and it's not all about media. Sometimes it's about utility and developing things for consumers that make their life better, because that's where the idea starts. So what are you guys doing nowadays on that side of the fence?
Right. So what really excites me about what MasterCard is doing, and for those of you that know me, I actually haven't worked on the brand side before. I specifically wanted to work at MasterCard because of what it is that MasterCard is doing, bringing so much value. And we spoke about creation of an ecosystem, but this digital value ecosystem around payments. We could talk about payments all day, but we're not going to do that. But everything around payments, the ability to help people make decisions before the payment and then use whatever it is they're doing after the payment, make recommendations, that's what's really exciting for me from an employee of MasterCard, from me as an advertiser, marketer in general, are those pieces that build the digital value ecosystem. I mean, there is certainly a place for, even now, there's, disruptive advertising will never go away, and I think we're always going to see that. But again, what really excites me and the types of products that MasterCard are building, they kind of straddle. You don't, is it product or is it marketing? You don't really know which one, but it's adding value to our customers, to our card holders, and that is what is exciting.
But gentlemen, you've done a wonderful job. Do we have any? We're not wrapping yet. Anybody have one quick question?
Who's going to get the
sir?
rose?
Okay, if you, ladies and gentlemen, be so kind to pass the mic
Is that a
down.
threat?
I was playing on the Bachelor thing. I said, who's going to get a rose here? It's you. You're getting the rose.
A question for the panel. I'm Javier Mantilla from Universal McCann, Latin America.
Can you speak up?
Hi, is that better? Okay. For the whole panel, a little bit we heard about talking about ROI, but for me is how do you create a real ponderation across media types that includes mobile? Because it's not just, in our view, specifically in emerging markets, it's not just the one vertical, it is about the confluence of them. So is there thinking on bringing metrics across all of them in order to create what would be more of a global ROI rather than just saying mobile ROI?
That's a complicated question from a metrics perspective. I think today we're measuring it in dollars. I think when you said that, there was a campaign that we did for Sony that popped to mind that really brought everything together. And people ask me, is this a mobile campaign or a broadcast campaign? I'll just be really brief explaining it. It starts with understanding what your consumers want. So we know with movies, for instance, that there's a huge correlation between watching the trailer or the commercial and going to see the movie. Makes sense. So how do you exploit that, especially when people are interacting with television and mobile in different ways at different times? So what we did was we just essentially, it was a pretty simple solution, wanted a second screen attachment or accompaniment to our commercials on air. So on all the broadcast spots, opening week and the week before, we just affixed a little Shazam bug. It said Shazam for tickets, right? And how we measured the ROI and how we measured and how we redefined our KPIs was really how many people were we actually sending with a pre-selected group who actually have the app, which is still 160 million worldwide, but how many people are actually watching that television and then taking some sort of proactive action against that? And then that was one metric. The secondary metric, and probably the more important, was how many people actually converted into ticket buyers, which was enormous and way above where we thought it was going to be. Now, is that a standardized metric? No, it's something that we're doing on a custom case-by-case basis. But what we need is something that holistically gets all those together and really speaks to, how many GRPs are you running, and then what are you running on mobile, and how are you converting? To me, the simplest way is like a power score, really basically saying, here's how much we spent, here's how much we made, which is probably, ultimately, no one wants to talk about it, but that's how we should be judging our campaigns to begin with. We're in the business of selling.
Yeah, and you can't look at mobile in isolation. In a lot of respects, it becomes a device. It's a tool. It's not the purpose. Yeah. So, we'll do. Yeah, we're going to do autographs after the panel. So we've got to look at it that way. I mean, in a lot of respects, depending on how sophisticated the product is and what the life cycle is, the reality is, if you can get the consumer on the mobile device, the experience may not be the best to transact. If it's commerce and it's I'm replenishing something that I've already bought on shelf, great. But if it's a much more sophisticated process, it may start at the mobile device and then end on the desktop. And some companies are slowly starting to figure that out. But you can't look at mobile and start and stop at the mobile device, because I think you're doing that, and that's maybe where your question is going, then you're making a huge mistake. So you do need to tie in multiple channels. One thing is, social is a huge driver for mobile right now. How do you tie that in as well? It's not just about transactions.
But isn't it? Or maybe it is. Maybe it's, like I just said, it's your total media expenditure and then your total returns. Is that a revolutionary concept, right? But why can't it, and why shouldn't it be that simple?
I'm just afraid that we might conflate cross-channel planning with cross-channel measurement, right? Because I feel like planning, obviously it makes sense. People exist, consumers exist across all platforms. But I keep hearing cross-channel measurement as an excuse not to do mobile. Well, I'm not sure if person A saw my ad in mobile and it's the same person who saw my ad in my digital campaign. Who cares? Just do it. Just do the mobile. I don't understand all the hand-wringing over this. Mobile is not the second medium, it's the eighth. So for the first 7 of them, why weren't we saying, I don't know if Joe heard my radio ad and read my magazine ad. It's okay. It's fine. Things will be all right. Just do your media campaign on mobile. And you'll know when it works and you know when it won't.
Agree with all.
Very, very short question. I remember you from last time. Short question. You hear me?
Okay. Got it. If ROI is ever going to work and all the other metrics in mobile, I think where we also missed out on desktop was inspiring creative. And for all these other measurements, all this targeting and measurement to work, did I upset you? We're going to have to get great creative, and that has to be the starting place. So my question is, a lot of TV's bought on faith because they believe it, it's quick, it's efficient, it reaches millions and billions of people. Have you done a creative campaign? Because today, in mobile, today you didn't necessarily have the measurement, but you could tell it just fired away. And that's my mission in life, to get better creative that inspires consumers so they can take further action, because inevitably you're all competing against the environment in which you're running.
Yeah.
Okay, quick answer.
All right, since I'm in the short chair, I will give you a short answer. So yes, no, I do agree in a lot of large respects. I think we're missing the opportunity to engage consumers with the full real estate, granted limited in a lot of respects that we have. So yes, I think that comes with a whole host of issues, namely the fact that I think some folks are still trying to figure out how to develop good creative in the desktop, let alone trying to figure out, okay, now how do I design for 80 different devices of varying shapes and sizes on a mobile device, multiple platforms, multiple iOSs, or multiple OSs. So yes, I think in a perfect world, creative could be a great opportunity to really move forward. I think we still have a long way to go and I challenge developers and creative agencies to be able to think differently as well.
And I just want to add one thing, that when you're thinking about creative, don't just think about the screen. I mean, you have an accelerometer in your hand. I don't know if anyone has seen what those look like when NASA uses them, but they're like really big machines. A campaign that I worked on before I was at MasterCard, my agency, Circus, Red Bull Augmented Racing, take a look at it. It actually increased sales of 12 packs 300% year over year. The creative wasn't necessarily about what was in the phone. It was the way that you used the phone in a very unique way. So creativity is not just about the visual creativity. I mean, you have a gyroscope in your hand, which again is
That's the best
fascinating.
point. It's a redefinition of what's creative.
Yeah,
I think
so,
we're in the technology business, a lot of us, and we need to use the medium as the creative force. I think that's Adam's point. It's a great point.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, gentlemen. Bachelors and non-bachelors, you all deserve a dozen roses for that. Right? Let's give them a warm round of applause.